Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. This is just a quick disclaimer before the video starts. In the next clip, you're gonna hear the intro to the video. The intro that I do at the beginning of all of my videos. I just wanted to apologize for the poor grammar. I'm exhausted, y'all. I just got off of work 2 hours ago. Y'all know I do the night shift, I do security. And I'm just under a lot of stress, just dealing with a lot of manipulation, sabotage, gaslighting, the typical, the usual that targets deal with. Anyway, you know how they are with the technology. One of the main tactics they use on targets is degradation, humiliation, and trying to warp your sense of self. So they do this tactic where they'll come for certain things that they either feel like you're insecure about or something that they know you don't want to become an insecurity. Like, for instance, let's say you were an English teacher, they'll purposely point out your grammar and try to make you seem incompetent. That's just an example. So anyways, I think they started doing that because of my own over-explaining. When I first started making the videos, I used to always make apologies at the beginning. Like, I would listen back to the video and notice that my grammar was off. And so I would do these apologies at the beginning, similar to what I'm doing now, like these disclaimers. And so anything that you show as an insecurity or something that you're fearful of, they'll come and try to use it against you. It's just something they do with the targeting. If you say that you have a fear of abandonment, right? If you're transparent and you say something like that in one of your videos, they'll constantly start making that a thing in the targeting and trying to sensitize you to that theme. If you say you have an insecurity with the way you look, if you say even the slightest, if you even show that you're even slightly insecure about the way you look, they will attack your look relentlessly. And you don't even have to say it really, because that's just a tactic they do anyway. They try to lower your self-esteem. So likely you are going to get roasted, whether or not you reveal that you're insecure about the way you look. But if you reveal it and you make them feel like you're insecure about anything, they'll use it as a weapon or a tool against you. So that's kind of something that happened when I first started making these videos in 2022. At that time, I still, had this, I don't know, I guess you could say I still had some sort of care, not to say I don't care anymore. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying I'm so desensitized now to the bullying and to my reputation being tarnished, etc. Back then I cared a little bit more. And so I was still Miss Nurse, I was still the English teacher. I had left island and all these embarrassing things happened and I had to come back to the island. My targeting had gone viral. And so of course, all of these people are watching my videos. I wanted to make sure that I was speaking correctly, and I didn't sound like a fool on camera. So I would always listen back to the video and be cringing because I would hear these grammatical errors. Anyway, so I haven't made this disclaimer in a long time. I stopped caring, to be honest with you. But now recently, since what I told you all in the last video, I applied to become an English teacher again. It's like with the technology, it's just this tactic they use. They've been purposely pushing the narrative of me not being able to read or me not being able to speak or just stuff like that. And also pushing other narratives too that I'm going to talk about in this video. It's just manipulation and sabotage. Anyway, so I just listened back though to that beginning clip, the next clip that you're going to hear. And I did hear improper grammar. I used contractions with improper tense. Like, for instance, I said, there's videos in the description box and comment section where I'm telling you guys about the links to the videos that I have in the description box and comment section that share info. I said there's videos, so that would mean, there is videos. That's improper grammar instead of there are videos. So it's like I'm using improper tense and I'm using contractions, and that's just how it is when I get on these videos, y'all. I'm tired. I'm under a lot of stress. And grammar is the last thing on my mind. But now I actually care again. And it's also been brought to my attention. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm stammering. This is what's happening. This is what they do. It's psychological warfare, y'all. Warfare of the mind, of the psyche. It's really, really efficient. I keep saying it's like a comprehensive program. The tactics they use really work. My music, y'all know I write poetry. They got in my head. They started sending me stuff about my poetry. I stopped writing for like 2 months. All of a sudden, I felt like I couldn't write anymore. They're really good at what they do. I'm telling you, they can get in your head. It's psychological warfare, and this program has been crafted and worked on and perfected for decades. So just know that it works. It doesn't matter how strong-minded you are. The tactics work. Anyway, so I just wanted to give that quick disclaimer, y'all. Please excuse the poor grammar. I'm sure there will be more in the video. This clip probably has poor grammar. But I just wanted to do that disclaimer. All right, y'all. Y'all, the same thing I said would happen actually did happen. I just listened back to the last clip and I said one of the main tactics they use is, and then I proceeded to list out a bunch of tactics instead of saying some of the main tactics they use are. So this is what I'm talking about, y'all. You know, it's just hard when you have a large amount of people watching. You're aware of the fact that they're watching. You're dealing with constant bullying via the technology, humiliation tactics, etc. It's difficult. So just please excuse the poor grammar because there will likely be more in the video. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa and my poetry name is New Lily. If you're new to the channel, please check out the links located in the description box and comment section. And in both locations, you'll find an identical set of links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information about the targeted individual program, information about the technology used on targets, the tactics used on targets, and information about the program in general. There's a plethora of info there, y'all, that I've gathered over the years. Please check it out. Pertinent info, y'all. Info I wish I knew before my targeting got as bad as it did. Like I said, you can, at the top of the links, find videos or links to videos that share my story. There are several videos where I have told my story, what started my targeting. So if you listen to the story, you'll hear that the targeting started in 2020, but I didn't learn that I was a target until the end of year 2022. And that was after I tried to relocate off the island where my targeting started. The targeting followed me and blew up. And I ended up coming back to the island I tried to relocate off of, doing research, and then learning that I was a target. And at that point, it was, you could almost say too late, because I had already had all of these egregious reactions, which most targets do. That's how the program's designed. It's a very comprehensive program. You don't want to get caught in this thing. Anyway, so that was pretty much what happened. The targeting blew up, and I came back to the island I tried to relocate off of, did research at the end of year 2022, realized I was a target, and I immediately started making videos and advocating for myself. But not only that, I started doing research. So what you have in the description box and comment section is a compilation of videos just sharing info that I've learned throughout the last few years, since learning I was a target and doing research. So again, I urge you to check those videos out. I say it all the time and people still don't check it out. Some of you do. If you're a target, you definitely need to check out those links. But even if you're not a target, you should check those links out, because the targeted individual program, even if it's not directing your life, even if it's not affecting your life directly right now, it will have some sort of effect on your life in the future, because this technology is detrimental to society, and it's something, from what I understand, that is going to be utilized on everyone, target or not, eventually. There's videos in the description box and comment section that talk about, even an agenda behind the technology or the targeted individual program that I learned about. One of the progenitors of the technology, a Harvard DARPA scientist, Robert Duncan, so that's a reputable source. He has talked about openly what the agenda behind the technology is, and even the agenda behind the targeted individual program is. Targets are basically experiments. And again, the goal is to use the technology on everyone. So there's a video in the description box and comment section. I don't remember the exact title, but it goes something like Harvard DARPA scientist reveals mind reading tech or something like that. And in that video, he goes into detail about, why the targeted individual program is happening and why we're seeing more and more cases of targeting, and the true agenda behind the utilization of the technology on targets. There's some sort of transhumanism agenda. And so apparently, eventually they would like to microchip everyone, connect everyone to a brain to computer interface hive, and all the brains will be connected. Nobody will have privacy, etc., etc. I'm not making this stuff up. If you just listen to my words, you're going to think I'm a nut or a conspiracy theorist. That's why I make sure to use sources. I always use reputable sources to back up the things I'm saying. So this is all research I've done. And I'm not a whistleblower, y'all. These are all things I've learned over the last few years from doing research. Information that's public info, right? It's out there for the public to find if you do your research. I just did my research because I'm targeted and I learned about this stuff. So anyways, now that I talked about that, just going into detail, y'all, because I want you to really check those links out, and some of you don't. Some of you do and some of you don't. And this is some important stuff. So even if you're not a target, I would advise you to check those links out and just kind of learn about what's taking place in the world that you live in. Okay, anyways, y'all, this video is, you could kind of say like a continuation of the last one, but not really. It's more so a continuation of one of the topics that I talked about in the last video. That was not the main topic of the last video. It was actually one of the topics that I mentioned briefly, and it was something I didn't even want to really go into too much detail about. But I've been getting gaslit, and certain reactions have happened and I'm getting gaslit about it, and these reactions were egged on, and it's just ridiculous to me. So it just feels like sabotage, and I want to talk about it. But I'm going to be careful with my words, because you know how it is when you're targeted. Even if you are dealing with an element of gaslighting and you are just trying to defend yourself, you still get retribution for the refutation and for the videos. So I'm going to be careful with my words, but yeah, I'm defending myself. Hold on, y'all. I'll be right back. I want to listen to what I said, and also I just got off work, so I need to kind of get settled, and I took a shower and feel really nice. I'm ready to talk, but there are a few things I need to do. I even wanted to get breakfast, y'all, but I'm just so irritated that I just hopped right into bed and started making this video. But I'll be right back. I'll be back. All right, y'all. I'm back to finish the video. I did listen back to my intro, y'all. I didn't go and get breakfast. I didn't even get out of bed. I just want to hurry up and make this video, y'all. And it's not going to be a long one either. Again, it's just more refutation and defending myself against these false narratives and gaslighting, really. So, as y'all heard in the last video, the main topic of the last video was gang stalking. You hear them revving in the back. The last thing they want me to do is clear the air. They love it when stuff like this is happening, especially if it can impede what seems like an opportunity. Anyways, you will hear revving, you'll hear all kinds of noises to shut me down. Anyway, in the last video, that was pretty much a continuation of the video before that one, right? So it was just more gym gang stalking documentation. And then briefly, towards the end of the last video, I mentioned an update on my 4th car accident and the court case that I had. And I told you guys I went to court, and I also mentioned the fact that I applied to become an English teacher again, right? So remember, 2 years ago, I applied to become an English teacher. This was shortly after I got back on island. So if y'all will recall, if you listened to my story, you'll have heard me say this. If you listened to my story, you will have heard me say this. I was an English teacher here on island from 2020 to 2022. Summer of 2022, I wrote a resignation letter, and I tried to, and when I say try, I actually did relocate. But the reason I'm saying try is because the whole mission was a failure. I ended up back on island. But let me stop saying try, because I actually did do this, even though I did end up back on island. So I ended up relocating off of island because of the targeting. That was why I resigned. It wasn't that I didn't want to teach. It wasn't that I was unhappy with the position. That's a really good job. And once you get your foot in the door, you're pretty much set if you do what you're supposed to do. You come to work and you teach the children, there's no issue, right? And even with teachers that are having issues, I noticed that they do this thing where they'll help those teachers. They'll have other teachers talk to those teachers if there is some sort of issue. I didn't have that issue, but I'm just saying, so once you become a teacher, they're very helpful. It's like a family type of community, and they're not judgmental, and They will guide you if they feel like you're going astray or you're doing something incorrect. So it's a really good profession to get into, especially if you want to help people. It's laudable. It's a laudable profession. But anyway, nonetheless, it wasn't about the career. It wasn't about the job. It had everything to do with targeting. Why I tried to leave Island. Why I did leave Island. So anyways, things blew up and I ended up coming back to Island. And surprisingly enough, I was told that they were hiring teachers and to apply. And so I did apply. And I was asked to come into, I'm sorry, the bird drone is going off in the background. I was asked to come into the school for an interview, the school that I actually taught at before. So I was working for the public school system down here. So you know how that works. You're working for the Department of Education for whatever region you're in, right? So like, for instance, when I was in Florida, I was working for Broward County Public Schools. And then once you work for that department, they can assign you to any high school in the district. And so that's similar to how it is here on Island. This is America. You know, we're U.S. territory, so it's the same process. So I was assigned to a high school. I actually was working at the high school that my mom teaches at. So when I got back on Island, I didn't think I was going to get an opportunity with that school specifically, to be honest with you. It's just the way that I left, right? It's not like I left abruptly or didn't warn them that I was leaving. It wasn't that type of situation. It's not like I left mid-school year and left them without a teacher. It wasn't that type of situation. But still, it was just the fact that I would say for the last half a year, when we went in the building, remember 2020 to 2022 was the COVID time, right? So you had quarantine going on and you had virtual teaching happening. And so I was teaching virtually for a year and a half. And then for the latter part of my teaching stint, the last half a year that I taught, we went in the building. And unfortunately, at this time, my targeting had started to amp up. You know, I was living in an apartment at this time. You have people outside of my apartment doing strange things. I used to try to cook in the apartment and I was cutting my fingers because I was so nervous because they were making so much noise. Like upstairs, the person was stomping on the roof. You had people revving by. At this point, I realized I was being watched on camera. I didn't know about the insect drones and I didn't understand the process. I didn't know I was a target. I just knew somehow they were seeing me on camera. So things started to get really gnarly at that time for me. I was living in my car, even though I was paying a big rent and I had a whole apartment. I was so uncomfortable in that apartment that I started living in my vehicle. So shortly before we actually went back in the building, I was in my vehicle. I was teaching classes out of my vehicle. I had a cooler in my car. I had a whole setup. I was living in my car. I had a MiFi and I was teaching and I was doing my thing in my car. Anyway, so when we got back in the building, my performance suffered. It wasn't really what it was when we were teaching virtually. I was aware that everyone was watching me. I was extremely uncomfortable. They were doing ref campaigns sometimes while I was teaching. That would happen sometimes in the road. I didn't know that's what it was called. I didn't know it was called ref campaign. I just knew that I was constantly hearing bird sounds and cars were revving. And I knew it had something to do with that text message I sent. I didn't know that it was rev campaign and bird drones and this and that. I had no idea. So anyway, my performance suffered for that last part of my teaching stint. And when I say suffered, it's not like the kids weren't getting taught. I was teaching them. They did have assignments. I still taught them MLA format, but I wasn't coming every day. I was calling out a lot. I was missing work a lot. It was terrible. And so eventually I decided to resign. And I actually even remember the principal saying, look, if you guys are leaving, please let us know so we can replace you. You know, he made sure he was adamant about saying that. And so again, it's not like I left abruptly during the school year. I left after summertime, but I wasn't sure if I was leaving. You know, I was kind of playing with the idea. I was terrified. It was like just starting over abruptly and, you know, with no plan. I kind of tried to plan things out for like a couple months, but I didn't really have like a solid plan. And so I wasn't sure if I was leaving. So it's not like at the beginning of summer, I let them know that I was resigning. It was like in the middle of summer, but it was still during summertime. So they had time to get someone else. But nonetheless, those factors are why I thought I wouldn't be called back to that school, you know, but I have to take into consideration the time when I did have a good performance, because majority of the time that I taught virtually, I did have a good performance and I got a good rating from the assistant principal that was over my department, and they gave me honor classes. And I really was trying and I was doing my best. It's just that, like I said, that latter part of the teaching stint was kind of sketchy. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, I tried to relocate off island. All of these horrible, embarrassing things happened. Controversial things. There's like some sort of taboo and stigma attached to me now. And then on top of things, that last, like I said, part of my teaching stint with that school specifically was not the best. And so I'm like, I don't think I'm getting a job with them. Even if I do get hired on with the Department of Education, they're likely going to start me in a different location. But surprisingly enough, they called me into the school and wanted to have a meeting with me. So I was shocked. I was like, and then when I say shocked, I mean in a good way. Like I was shocked though. Anyway, so I remember I went into the school, and I talked about this in the last video, y'all, so I don't really need to tell the story again. Y'all know what happened. I told y'all I was still having these PTSD trauma responses to certain stimuli. And unfortunately, the sensitization with my specific targeting has something to do with younger females. And when you're a teacher, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with younger females, you're dealing with younger men, you're dealing with young adults. So that's obviously uncomfortable. That's why I said there's some sort of stigma attached to me because of what was created with the text message and then the reactions that I had when I tried to relocate off island. Because before I left, I wasn't having the reactions that I had once I got back to island. Remember I told y'all when I left, that was when all these weird things started happening. Technology was being utilized against me. They were sending certain narratives. I started having these PTSD reactions. It was to the point where I couldn't even sit still without feeling like I was going to twitch. Or that wasn't happening before I left island. Even though I, like I said, felt uncomfortable with the fact that I knew I was on camera when I was teaching, I still used to hug my students. I wasn't twitching. I wasn't having an issue with sitting still. I used to hug my students. They used to run in the hallway, Miss Nurse, and give me a big hug. And I was hugging them. I was I was completely comfortable around the students. There wasn't that element of, I guess you could say, complication. But when I got back to island, it was like I was nervous and having these PTSD reactions. And anytime I was around a young female, I was shaking and I was trembling. And so I'm going into the school and I'm like, okay, come on, Sharifa. You didn't do anything. Just relax. Go into the school. They're calling you in. It's fine. As I'm going into the school, there's a police car that's driving slowly by. Now the police cars drive by me and I don't have any reaction at all. I mean, sometimes I even chuckle. And not in a disrespectful way. It's just more so like I know that, okay, this is just a targeting, whatever. It's like this kind of like love-hate relationship I have with the technology and the bird drones and the whatever it is. So it's not like what it was when I first got back on the island, where it was like this sense of anxiety and angst, and I'm attaching the police here to the police in the States and what was happening in the States and how things had blown up because of the reactions I was having. And so anyways, after the police car drove by super slow, I started to tremble. Like I'm trembling as I'm walking, and I'm wearing heels too on top of things. So it's like I'm like this tall female wearing heels on stilts, and I'm trembling. And then I get in the office and I'm meeting with the administrators, and I'm sitting there talking to them, and I'm trembling in my seat. Surprisingly enough, though, I feel like I answered the questions they asked me pretty well. I think I did a fair job of answering those questions. That wasn't the issue. It was literally that I was so nervous that the principal could even see me shaking. He even said, Miss Nurse, relax, you're with family. And I said, do I look nervous? He said, yeah, kind of. I was like, oh boy. I didn't know what to, I couldn't help it. I was shaking like a leaf, man. I was shaking. And so eventually, like, he actually got up from the meeting and kind of like just slipped into his room, into his office. And I think it's because he thought that he was making me nervous, and it wasn't him. It was everything, really. It was everything. And then I'm also aware of the fact that the whole island is watching. I'm a reserved, shy female. I always have been. And I'm just thrown into the spotlight where the whole island is watching me, and I'm on like this unscripted reality TV show. And then I dealt with this traumatizing experience when I tried to relocate off island, and this horrible false narrative was created. I mean, yeah, I was nervous. I was shaking. So, and I'm not saying that in a sarcastic way. I'm not trying to, and it wasn't directed towards the principal either. I'm just saying in general, that's just out to the air. I'm just saying, like, these reactions I'm having is because I'm being stared at by everyone like an animal, like a circus freak. I'm a shy, reserved person. I always have been. I'm not the spotlight type of female. I'm a very low-key, reserved type of female. I always have been. So this is a lot for me, and so then it was just too much. I was shaking and I did not hear back from them. And so I was just like, okay, teaching is out the window. Let's focus on another career because you're not giving up. You didn't do anything and you are going to succeed, whatever it is. Maybe the Most High is telling you that there's something else you're supposed to be doing. So I started digging and looking for careers, and everything I was doing was an issue. I remember I was trying to become a developer. They kept taking the current. I was creating portfolios. I was teaching myself how to code. I actually started creating a portfolio, a digital portfolio. I was teaching myself the different coding languages. I started out with the easier ones like CSM and what is it called? It's been so long, y'all. HTL, CSM, and I started dabbling with JavaScript. You know, like the HTL and the CSM, those are not even really considered. If you talk to like a real developer or somebody that's into coding and stuff, if you tell them that you're coding and you're doing CSM and like HTL, they're going to laugh at you. Someone who doesn't know about coding, what you're doing is going to look cool. Like it looks like you're writing computer code and like you're doing something cool, right? But that's like the very surface level of it. It's real deep and it's really complicated, coding. And it takes time to learn, especially if you're doing it by yourself and you're teaching yourself. So I started delving into deeper coding languages like JavaScript. I was even looking at Python, and then I started to kind of stray away from Python because that's more back-end coding. But I was learning everything, man. I was learning the front end. I was trying to become a front-end developer. And then I was seeing, you know, that you could do this from home. Like you could be a developer or even a programmer from home and make like a 6-figure salary. It's not about the money. It's really about whatever makes you happy and whatever you're passionate about, because you don't want to be in a career where you're miserable and you're making a bunch of money. But anyway, so nonetheless, I was just like, well, that's something I could do to survive. And I don't have to leave the house because things were really bad when I got back on island. That wasn't working either. You know, I was teaching myself how to code and I was creating a portfolio and stuff. I still have the portfolio. If y'all scroll down in my videos, you'll see it. I can scroll there and show you. I'm not going to do that. Y'all scroll down and do your research if you want to. Anyway, they kept taking the current. And Ref campaign was happening and all kinds of stuff was happening. And I was getting real angry back then. I was having reactions. I was actually around the time when I threw up the symbol eventually that they used on me for like 2 years. They were haranguing me about throwing that thing up with my hand. I was just angry. I'm like, all this is happening. I didn't do anything. Now I'm still trying to be productive and salvage whatever I can of my life. And even this part is being sabotaged. Like they kept taking the current. You know, like they kept sending me stuff like it almost seemed like death threats with the technology. And so I got angry, you know, and I was just having these horrible, nasty reactions. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, y'all. I'm just trying to give you the timeline of what's taken place, what happened when I first got back on island in 2022 to now, where I'm at now and where I'm applying to be a teacher again. And so you can understand the level of angst that I'm feeling. Even though I can do it, I know I'm more than capable of doing it. It's still just like obviously still a level of angst. I'm human. I'm not a robot. I've been through a lot of traumatic experiences. I am human. So anyways, immediately, right? Because I'm going to kind of fast forward now, y'all. I don't want to start giving a recap of the things that took place a few years ago. That's already passed and gone. I'm just trying to explain to you where the level of angst comes from, especially when they start pushing certain things, sensitization. So fast forward to now, y'all. Long story short, the teaching thing didn't work out back then. I was given the interview with the school I used to work at, and I didn't hear from them again. I was super nervous when I went in there. Then I tried to become a developer. That didn't work out. Eventually, you know, so many things happened, and I looked at so many different avenues and stuff, and then I just eventually just started settling into doing security. And in my head, I was like, I know I'm going to go back to school. I kept saying, I know I'm going to go back to school. I'm not giving up. I just need to figure out what I'm going to do. And it just kind of turned into like this complacent thing where in my head, I knew I would go back to school, but I wasn't making the move to do it, right? And so eventually I told y'all, like last year, I went onto the government website and I was just looking for a government job. I was trying to see if maybe by some miracle they would give me some sort of opportunity to let me work for one of these agencies, one of these companies, one of these entities for the government. And that was where I saw the correction officer job. And y'all know what happened with that. So I'm not going to go into the details about that. So anyway, we're here now, right? And I told y'all in the last video that I applied to become an English teacher again. My mom came randomly and told me, you know, she's in cahoots with everyone, so she knows what's allowed from what's not allowed. And I don't know, I guess she was given the green light to tell me this, but she came and she told me to apply. You know, that She spoke to one of the secretaries, one of the like head secretaries. Like, she's been working there for years. Even when I was a teacher years ago, she was working there. She spoke to her and asked her, or told her that I am on island, and she said, yeah, they're hiring English teachers and to tell me to apply. So I applied, and immediately after applying, with the technology, they started sending the theme of Predator. They really started doing that. I kid you not. I understand the pushing of certain false narratives as some sort of retribution because you think I'm a bully or a bitch or I bear false witness or whatever the case is. But they started hardcore sending immediately after. I was just like, oh my God, are they not going to play it off? Like, for me, I even made the comment. I know they remember this. I said, this is similar to when I was in the gym and I started doing the 300-pound deadlift. And then with the technology, they started insulting my looks. Like, everything was, I was ugly. They don't want it, this and that. Like, all kinds of horrible stuff with the technology. Just coming for me like crazy. I'm bald-headed. I acne in my face. Y'all, I'm telling you, if I didn't have the mind that I have, and if I was not a strong-minded female, I would have done bust down a long time ago. But I am a very strong-minded person. And so none of that has ever really worked, but it does take a toll. And everyone on islands watching like you getting roasted all day, every day with the technology. Anyway, so nonetheless, similar to what was happening when I did the 300-pound deadlift, this is what happened literally the day that my mom told me to apply and I started applying. They started sending these videos. Remember I told you all about the shadow networking AI software. And that's part of the information located in the description box and comment section. Basically links to videos that talk about how the technology works and the fact that they're able to hack all of your technological devices and send you videos with sensitization, basically to sensitize you. So sometimes, like I said, they'll send videos insulting your looks, like they'll be insulting this person, but you know subliminally they're roasting you. I've shown y'all an example of how that works. Like this video here, where you can see part 3, example of the shadow networking AI software used on targeted individuals. And you can see they were using it on another target, right? And so I was just showing an example of them using it on him, and I was giving commentary. And you can see he titled his video, Targeted Individual More Mocking Through the Media. And he has Stalked by Media. So that was how he was terming what they do with the technology. And I know the technical term for it from Michael Barden, another target who's dealt with the same thing. We all deal with it. All targets deal with it. It's called shadow networking. So that's what they're using. It's a shadow network, right? And the reason it's called shadow network, I suppose, is because it's something that's, hidden in the darkness and the shadows, right? It's not at the forefront. It's not like regular media, and it's not something that everyone knows about either. It's like this underground like AI technology software that's used on targets. So anyways, they can actually manipulate and send you things to sensitize you. They can send you videos making it look like people are wearing stuff they're not wearing, making it sound like people are saying things they're not saying. But also too, they'll oftentimes send videos about people that like it seems like they're roasting. Like let's say it's about some sort of creepy dude in the mall. I'm just giving you an example. That was doing some weird, creepy stuff. The news person, right? The newscaster that's doing the special will be going in on the person as they're describing the crime and stuff. And he was so creepy and weird and this and that. And this is just an example. And inadvertently, that they're roasting you because these are some of the same negative adjectives that they use to describe you on a daily basis. You're constantly getting that theme in all the videos you're clicking on. And all these people are staring at you while it's happening. And oftentimes you even hear noise campaign in the background when the video's playing. So it's like a humiliation tactic, but it also sensitizes you. And it can create a sense of PTSD and trauma, especially if it's attached to some sort of heinous narrative, like what was created from the text message. So anyway, immediately they started sending me videos the day that my mom told me to apply. I went straight on and I applied. Started sending me videos about predators and, excuse me, I don't even want to use this words, but peds, the word, right? And I'm not judging anybody that has done that because they've actually used gang stalkers on me that have done that crime. And the only reason I know is, I'm not going to say it because me saying this kind of put a spotlight on those people. I'm not going to explain how I came across that info or whatever. Let me just cut it there, right? Because that made me get more enemies too. I believe that's why they used some of those guys on me that did actually do that crime as gang stalkers. Look, they're revving in the background to craziness now. With the water truck. No, they're revving in the background with the water truck. Listen, anyway, I can't deal with it. Like, it's gaslighting. Now they're making it seem like this and that. But they were really pushing the thing hardcore. Like, the other day, like, traumatizing me and making, like, so this is why I'm talking about it now. So anyways, so they were just, I've started having reactions again to that sensitization. Like, I was calling myself healed. I was going around young females, young men. Shoot, they stuck some of my students, some of my old students in the gym about a month ago. I talked about it in one of my videos. I didn't even realize that those were students until after the fact. That's to tell you, I'm so healed. I was working out around them like nothing. I didn't realize they were students, but they were young. They were the same age as my students. I didn't even realize I was working out around students. Anyway, so this is what I was calling myself healed. I wasn't having these reactions that were sending the narrative off and on. Not as hardcore as they started doing when I started applying to be a teacher again. And I'm just laughing and not having a reaction. Like, it's funny to me at this point. But it's like I started having the anxious reaction, and I also started remembering what happened to me when I went into the school, when I first got back on island, and how I was trembling and I never heard from them again. So there's that level of angst where I'm just like, oh my God, like the slightest reaction, even if it's just PTSD, and I might lose the opportunity. And now they're sending me all this crap with the technology. I'm just getting real nervous and anxious, and I'm having all these stupid, dumb reactions. I'm like, oh my God. And so, excuse me, y'all. Let me sit up. My back is hurting. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me sit up. So anyways, y'all, I'm sorry I had to sit up. My shoulder's hurting. I did stupidness. This is off topic, y'all, but in the last video, y'all heard me talking about what happened in the gym on Wednesday, right? And I told y'all I was doing a new ab workout. And so that second ab workout that I was doing, it's for the obliques. Excuse me. I did not perform the workout correctly. I didn't have, as much as my upper body is naturally developed, and that's why I don't really work on my upper body like that. I am still just naturally strong up top. I don't have like manufactured upper body strength. I'm not conditioned up there. So trying to hang, I thought I could just do it. Trying to hang and do 100 reps of that oblique exercise thing I was trying to do, it was a lot harder than I realized it would be. And I ended up, just to prove a point, pushing and doing all 100 reps. And I knew the form was improper. I knew at a certain point I wasn't even hitting my obliques anymore. And so I ended up, like, I think straining myself in my lower body, because that's what started getting pulled. And so it's like I could barely lift my legs now. Walking around limping, I'm in so much pain. And then too, I have like this blister on my toe from the heels I was wearing to the courthouse. Oh my God, y'all, it's just a lot. TMI, I'm sorry. I'm just explaining to you why I sound broken when I was sitting up. I'm in a lot of pain right now. Anyway, I didn't even go to the gym yesterday. I skipped gym. That's how sore and in pain I am. Anyway, so back to what I'm saying though. Back, the birds are going off now. Anyway, back to what I'm saying though, y'all. So I've been having these stupid PTSD reactions, and it's just not fair. And then to make things worse too, what really made it start really triggering yesterday, and like yesterday was real bad, was what happened in the courthouse on Thursday, the day before yesterday. Because it wasn't what happened in the courthouse, it was when I was leaving. I would say even in the court though, I had reactions, because they did have like several cases that I had to sit through where they had some guys that were on screen for, I'm not going to say their crime, right? It wasn't the crime or the false narrative created from the text, but still there was a victim involved. And so there was the terminology of stay away from the victim. And it was so reminiscent of the court case that I sat in, the virtual court case that I sat in when I first got back on island. As soon as I got back on island, I had a virtual court case for one of the car accidents I had gotten into before I left island. And they dismissed it. Thank the Most High, they did dismiss it. But I had to sit through the court case. And similar to what happened in that courtroom, except it was a lot less intense because at least I wasn't there physically. But I was still having a reaction back then too. It was actually a lot worse than what was happening in the courtroom on Thursday. But anyway, when I got back on island, I was having that virtual court case. Before they had my court case, they had this dude. And I don't know if that was, like gang, like theater, or if it was real. But then that instance, they had a dude, and that was before I had made my videos and told my story. So I think everybody thought whatever they thought. So they had a dude, and, you know, like, it seemed like he was, I don't know, arrested. I think he was a detainee. I'm trying to be careful with my words. I don't want to, you know, I've offended a lot of people, so I'm just worried about the things I say. I think he was a detainee, but he was, like, in-house, on house arrest. And so they were telling him, you know, basically for his crime, which was some sort of sexual assault, he was to stay away from the victim, and he was going to be on house arrest for this amount of time, and whatever it was they were telling him. And I remember at the time I was very, very anxious. You know, this is when I had just got back on the island, and all those PTSD things had happened in Florida, where I was having all those responses, those PTSD traumatic responses in my car to the things they were sending with the technology. And at the time I didn't know that they were using shadow networking technology on me. So I was constantly seeing the theme of predator and this and that. And the people in Florida are vicious gang stalkers. They were on top of me relentlessly, revving by all kinds of stuff, throwing rocks at my car. So I was shaking like a leaf. You know, and so when I came home a mess, I came home a very nervous, anxious, riddled mess, anxiety-riddled mess. And so I remember I was sitting through that court case, and it was right before, like I said, my court case. It was virtual. And then to make matters worse, one of the attorneys was the mother of one of my prior students. He was one of my honor students, and she was white. So it was just really, I was real anxious, real nice lady. And I actually worked in this after school program with her, with some of the students. You know, we had this moot court thing going on with some of the students. And so they would have like these fake trials, and it was like a competition on island. And so she was one of the attorneys that was helping with that. And then also too, she was the mother of one of my prior students. I taught her son. He was in one of my honor classes. So there was the element of the race thing, and then the element of this being humiliating. And so I'm sitting here while she's there on camera, you know, I guess she was his attorney or advising him. She's sitting there on camera giving him advice and just kind of saying, you know, a few things to the side while the judge and her take turns speaking. The judge was saying the guy's sentence, and, you know, that he's to stay away from the victim and this and that. And, you know, so all of that had me just, I was shaking again. It was another PTSD reaction. I'll never forget it. So yesterday in the courtroom, you know, it was just kind of reminiscent of that. As I'm sitting there in the courtroom, I was shaking before they even had those cases with those dudes on the screen, those guys on the screen where they were talking about their crime, which wasn't sexual assault, but there was still a victim involved. Before they even got on the screen, I looked nervous. I was very nervous. I was sitting amongst people. You know, I was on camera. I know everybody's watching me. Before I even got in the courtroom, I had to sit outside and wait on a bench area where a guy was already sitting. As soon as I walked in and they saw a dude was sitting in there, they started revving by. Then a young lady comes in. She looked around my age. I'm still just saying young lady. She came in. They start revving more. So I'm just sitting there. I know everybody's watching me. You know, the ticket they gave me said 13. Like, it was just nerve-wracking, man. But at the same time, things weren't that bad. Like, I keep saying I thought it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The judge was nice to me. That was the same judge, if y'all listened to the last video. The same judge that was coming to the gym in the evening time when I was having all those nasty reactions to what those guys started doing to me because of the main trainer guy. And I was thinking all these nasty, horrible, insulting thoughts to those dudes just in reaction to the bullying. And she was in there. You know, there was even, like I said, an evening when she was like by the guy's girlfriend while the girlfriend was doing leg presses, and she squatted down and she was like, it looked like coaxing the girlfriend on or encouraging her or something. So, you know, this is just all nerve-wracking to me. I'm like, oh my God, this is a judge. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I think this lady doesn't like me. I'm like, of course I'm going to be respectful. I don't have a problem with her at all. But I'm just like, I remember I had all these horrible, embarrassing reactions, egregious reactions in front of her. I could see she was, you know, seemed to be rooting on the guy's girlfriend. The attorney that had to advise me was white. He had a plaid shirt on. You know, all of this was sensitizing and nerve-wracking. The whole island's watching. Come on. So I was nervous. Anyway, I still got through it, though. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And they were very nice to me. I got through it and I left, right? And I left feeling good about what took place. I left feeling like nothing was wrong. I left feeling good about the interaction. And so then I'm driving down, as I told y'all in the last video. Like I said, this is a continuation of a topic that I briefly mentioned in the last video. my mom had told me before I left the house, well, since you're dressed nicely, go down to the Department of Education after the court and go speak to Miss So-and-so, the lady that said that they're hiring teachers. So I drove down there, with the Spotify. Sometimes I told you guys this already. They'll deviate off my playlist and they'll start sending songs with the same AI shadow networking software. They'll start sending songs with sensitization. So the first song they sent was Dreamer. I'm a dreamer, some stupidness like that. As a reference to the incident that took place with that coworker at the correction officer job. Again, y'all check out the prior videos if you want to hear the details about that. Like, I don't make videos about the job anymore, even though I don't work there anymore. There was still that element of me possibly getting the job back. I still don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what direction I'm going to end up going in. To be honest with you, I would like to teach, to be honest. But I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm not trying to burn any bridges. But at the same time, I do have videos that I had already made talking specifically about that situation. So if you want to hear more about the situation with the correction officer job and the coworker and this humiliating thing that happened with her, let me scroll to the video that you can check out. This video from 7 months ago that's titled Targeted Individual Humiliating Neuromonitoring Experience. And you can see, it went back up top. Hold on. You can see the thumbnail says humiliation. It's not that far down for you to scroll. So if you would like to hear the details about that coworker and understand what I'm talking about when I reference her, you can check that video out. But I'm not talking about the situation anymore. At most, I'll probably just talk about things that they send with the technology if I have a reaction, because they're constantly sending stuff about that specific situation. And again, let me just reiterate again, I don't want to go into the details about that situation, y'all. Let me reiterate that they've been in my brain with the RFID chip for about 3 years now. To my knowledge, it's been since 2022. All they have seen is activity of men. Okay, the activity that they've seen in my brain has been activity with men. It was to the point where they tried to humiliate me. Again, speaking of humiliation, they sent the name of the Hispanic guy that I was daydreaming about on the pool game. That's how I realized that they were reading my thoughts. That's what made me learn about the technology. Because I was like, wait a minute. What are the odds that they would play against me on the pool game with this guy's name? And it's such a unique name. I'm like, are they in my... I remember thinking there's no way. And so I started doing more research and realizing that, yes, they use technology on targets and there is mind reading tech, etc., etc. And something called neuromonitoring. So anyways, to humiliate me, they played against me on the pool game with the name of the Spanish guy that I was daydreaming about at the time. And at the time, too, I was actually so relieved when I realized that they were in my brain. I'm like, then they know I didn't do anything. Because all I was thinking about in my head was the situation. I kept playing it over and over and over in my head. You want to talk about obsessive thoughts? All I kept thinking about was sending the text message and the nights where I was hearing the noises and the incidents that occurred and how I was innocent. I know they didn't see anything. I think that's why they revealed to me that they were in my brain and they tried to humiliate me with the name of the Spanish guy. Anyway, so for the last 3 years, all they've seen is activity with men. She's the only female, I keep reiterating this. They even clicked the window just now because they know it's true. She's the only female where there has been any activity in my brain. And it was a weird dream. And then it turned into this humiliating thing that I started overthinking. Anyway, nonetheless, it is what it is, y'all. So check out that video if you want to hear more details about that. I'm not going to harp on that right now. Anyway, so I left the courtroom feeling like everything was okay. I'm like, I'm good. They start sending stuff with the Spotify. Similar to, like I said, the day when I was told to apply. How the technology kept sending stuff about predators. I'm like, why are you going to do this? Are they trying to get a reaction to mess me up? Because last time that's pretty much what happened. I had that PTSD reaction when I was going into the school. I was trembling. And then I didn't hear back from them. So anyways, I got down to the Department of Education. And it's a new location to where it was when I was a teacher before. So I didn't know where to go. So I called my mom and I said, hey, could you tell me where to go to find Miss So-and-so? And she said, well, you know what? Don't go today because I sent an email and I got an automated email back saying she's out of office today. Okay, so I didn't think anything of it. Now they're chirping. It's a gaslighting. Now they're chirping like that's the case. Okay, well, I didn't think anything of it. And then I left. And as I'm leaving, I noticed that I'm driving on the highway. And I noticed that there's this rough campaign, like a motorcycle driving down the highway with the military, this guy wearing a full military uniform. They've used ref campaign on me before, but I've never seen anybody in a full military uniform revving down the highway. So I'm like, is this something going on? And then the plane kept flying by and stuff. And then when I got in the neighborhood, they were chirping and chirping, and the car revved by. So I'm like, is something happening? Like, I'm like, what's going on? Are they pulling my chain? Like, what's going on? So now I've just been real anxious about the thing. So all yesterday I was having these stupid PTSD reactions on camera. They know I haven't been having these reactions. It's been like years since you've seen me reacting to that sensitization. So all day yesterday, it's like everything's making me react. It's almost similar to what started happening to me 2 weeks ago with the gym thing, where anytime I heard the word want, I'm getting bassity, and I was even waking up breathing funny and with a look on my face like I was so anxious about that situation. Like now it's this. Like it's always something. Like you just constantly, your cortisol levels are through the roof as a target. You're always at a high stress level. It's always something different that you're stressing about. So anyway, I just got off of that high where I'm stressing about this guy that I don't even like that. No disrespect. I'm not trying to be a bitch. It's just like, we both don't want each other, right? So let's just say that. We both don't want it, right? Let's say that. Let's just call it that. If I say that, maybe they'll be satisfied. You heard them revving in the back. This is what they need. I feel like if I say that and I acknowledge that, then they will let it go. Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe that's what they needed me to say and acknowledge, to let the situation go. Because I've been good. I've been over the situation. The traipsing his girlfriend around, having his friends diss me, insulting me with the technology, all of these crazy things for what? None of it's necessary. Okay, we both don't want it. Let's just call it that and call it George, please. Please leave me alone about the situation, because I have had it up to here with that. I'm so over it. I've been over it. I don't like him like that. No disrespect. I don't have a problem with him. He's a cool guy, right? Aside from the bullcaca he started to do to me. I don't want it. Okay, so that's cool. We settled that. All right, so moving on. I was stressing that thing. For like 2 weeks, I was stressing that thing because they were attacking me nonstop. And mind you, for a whole year, I've been dealing with bullying in that gym because of that situation. Because of that one day where I had a reaction to the stuff he was doing to me. So it's really a lot, man. And it's like one thing to the next. So I finally came off of that high. They kind of cooled down a little bit. Not really. It's still happening. But it cooled down a little bit. I'm like, okay, now this. Now this is something I'm stressing about. So I cannot get a break, man. So anyway, I started having some reactions yesterday to some of the crap they were sending with the technology. Like, I felt the look happening on my face that I haven't had happen in forever. It's been so long. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to ruin the opportunity. I'm like, it worked. Bingo, they did it. They did it. So now today, this morning, I get off work. I just went to the gas station to get some gas before I come home. You know, everybody's watching me. So the lady for the gas station, she was nice to me. She said, hey, mama, whatever. I gave her my card. She's on the phone with someone and the phone's on speaker. Obviously, he was watching me. He said, that chicken. He kept saying chicken, saying the word. Sorry it cut off abruptly, y'all. I had somebody call and all of a sudden it seemed like a tactic, right as I'm saying that. I don't know why that's being done. I don't understand why. What is causing it? So anyways, it's not like I bear false witness. I didn't do anything. I don't understand. I did everything I was supposed to do. So anyways, y'all, I forgot what I was gonna say though. Yeah, so he's saying, the chicken thing. And so I didn't get annoyed or rude or anything. I just told her, go ahead and keep the receipt, which I always say anyway. And I just walked out and I pumped my gas. And I started writing a song last night, y'all. Coincidentally, where I was talking about getting caught up in some bullshit. You know how I used to be low-key like a lotus. And now I'm spotlighted like the POTUS. And I said, got caught up in some bullshit that was bogus. That's just some of the lyrics from it. Y'all will hear it when I'm finished writing it. But anyway, it's just like I put that song on to play because it actually sounds kind of fire how it's going. I'm just like, it's just craziness to me. It's like some of them couldn't wait to hop on the opportunity to push that false narrative because I'm having a reaction to you sensitizing me and sending stuff and PTSD and trauma. Like, come on, man. Stop the bullshit, man. I haven't been reacting to that thing for years now. I haven't had a reaction. I'm usually laughing when they send the stupidness. But it's like I'm just remembering. Now they're making a noise for laughing. Anyway, but I'm just remembering what happened to me. It's not a joke for me, though, because this is my life. And I'm remembering what happened to me a couple years ago when I had applied. I remember what happened. And I remembered how my nervous reaction actually impeded the opportunity. So this is something it's not a joke to me. Anyways, y'all, I just had to make a video about it because it's like now they're pushing that bullshit again. It's like I'm reactive again. It's just annoying, man. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all in the next one. I just wanted to give you an update. So that's the update. I will keep you updated on what's going on like I always do. Just keep tuned in, y'all. Stay tuned in. All right, y'all have been rocking with me since the beginning, since the end of 2022. We are now in 2025, y'all. I'm gonna keep y'all updated. Just stay rocking with me. All right, I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace out.